likewise, we can also develop happiness by the good things that we have. And this is also a very similar practice, in that we can remind ourselves sometimes, about all the good things that are going on in our lives. And it's so easy to take things for granted. In our active and very busy schedules sometimes, we forget all the good things that we have. And if something goes wrong, and this thing becomes such a big thing in the mind, and we think, oh, well, in politics something is going wrong. Wow, it's a disaster. Again, a new government coming. Or is it the same old government, just the swatch position, just turn around? Who knows? So sometimes we might feel frustrated and annoyed with our current situation, but then we forget about how much worse it could come. Because we're living in really wonderful times. Don't get me wrong, it's still samsara, of course. But considering that it's samsara, it has improved, I would say, a lot. And if you listen to the media, you would not believe that the world is a better place nowadays than it was 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 300 years ago. Actually, I think most of us, if you could choose any point in history, when would you have wanted to live? Which point in time would you choose? Except the Buddha's lifetime, of course. You super enthusiastic Buddhists, they always say the Buddha's time 2000 years ago. But except the Buddha's own lifetime, which point in history would you choose? So when I think about it and the living standards in the past and the lifespan and human rights, actually the choice should be very easy for you. If you are a woman and female, there is no better time for you than now. Just a few years back, I don't know in Malaysia, but even in the West, women were not even allowed to vote. At the beginning of this century, voting was something for men only. And rights and being self-reliant as a woman never existed more than now. Childbirth. Just consider how many young girls and women have died while giving labor. That was the norm for most of human history. Nowadays, we have medicine, we have antibiotics. We don't have to, it's a very small percentage only. And even in the poorest of countries, the living standards have increased by a lot. But when you turn on the media or Facebook and listen to the news, it sounds as if we are heading towards doom and everything is becoming worse and worse and worse. This is the job of media, to report things that provoke a bit of anxiety and fear because it is newsworthy. Nobody will turn on the news and then they say, scientists have eradicated another disease over the last 50 years, like polio and so many of the others have almost completely disappeared. So we tend to take things for granted nowadays. And that's why our subjective feeling of what we have, our happiness, is not really, it doesn't correspond and doesn't match the real facts on the ground. So sometimes it's useful to step back and also take record and count all the good things that we have going on for us. So both in the worldly sense, we're living in a society where there's currently stability, there's no war, right? You can go out of the house, there's no danger of being shot or imprisoned. You say the wrong word, you will disappear. We can even criticize our government. They don't appreciate it, but most cases you will be fine. So we have so many rights and so many opportunities these days. Lifespan is longer than ever before. In fact, there's a book I can highly recommend. It's called Enlightenment Now by Steven Pinker. And the title for us Buddhists might be a bit misleading, because when he speaks about enlightenment, he means the scientific revolution and enlightenment period, which started, I think, when was it, 200 years ago? Something like that. So the enlightenment period is nothing to do with Buddhist enlightenment. But this is the time when scientific understanding arose, when people stopped burning witches on the stake, and we came up with better explanations for earthquakes, rather than just God made the world shake. So with all of that, our living standards have increased by a lot, and human rights, and even animal rights. But this is not to say that there are no problems. There's global warming and so many other threats, but so far we have done a pretty good job at handling them. We have to do a better job, but nonetheless. So samsara will always be samsara. Yes, we can improve it, but it's just a way of making samsara more cozy. But samsara will never be entirely perfect. So that's why the Buddha's teachings is not geared in order to improve the world and make it a better place. Like Michael Jackson is singing, heal the world, make it a better place for you and me and the entire human race. That was not the Buddha's intention. He wants to make a better place for the world in each and every one of us. The world of sense perceptions, the things how we look out, how we perceive the world, through seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. This is our world. This is our loka. And depending on our views and perceptions, we can perceive the world in a positive light or in a negative light. So let us recap some of the good things that we encounter these days. We can be grateful. Well, number one, for our parents, of course. Who've taken the effort to show us the world, take care for us when we were small, listen to us when we could not even speak proper words, and taking the time, how many hours? They're having to stay up at night because we are screaming. So they have sacrificed a lot. So that deserves our gratitude. And then also, I think for most of us, we also have a lot of gratitude towards the Buddha and the fact that he was sharing the Dhamma. And that even now, 2,500 years later, we still have these wonderful and precious teachings here and among us. It's just amazing. Which other institution has survived for so long? And it's still helping us. It's still helping us to transform ourselves. So we can also have a lot of gratitude towards the founder, the Buddha, and then also all the later generations who have made an effort to maintain the Dhamma. At first to memorize it, then to write it down, and to put it into practice. So we are part of a large lineage, of a long lineage, of dating back all the way to the Buddha. We can have gratitude that we have food every day to eat, of course, or access to medicine. Never in history did we have so easy access to medicine. And that's why we can stay alive now for so long. And very various nutrition, not just always the same food. Now you can eat Mexican food, Italian food, Thai food, very easy. I think social and society, if society is stable, this is also a very rare and special thing. If there is no turmoil in society. And religious freedom. So these are all very special things that we all take for granted and we forget about them. And reminding ourselves on those things is actually a huge contributor to well-being, to how we see the world. Actually, they did some studies, and it turns out that the level of gratitude that a person has is a greater predictor for happiness than income, health even. There were a few other factors, whether a person has children or not. These were also other factors, but it seems that gratitude is one of the major players in how good and how well we feel in our own skin, so to speak. And it's another form of happiness for free. It doesn't cost anything. We just need to remind ourselves about all the good things that are happening. And if we do that on a regular basis, not just once a year, but if you make that a regular practice, a daily practice, to sit down, maybe in the morning, for 5 minutes, and jot down 5 things that you feel grateful for. And to do that consistently, say for 2 weeks. By the end of the 2 weeks, you will feel a difference. How you look at the world, how you perceive things. And our perceived well-being actually increases by doing just this simple practice. So they call it a gratitude journal, a Katanyuta journal, if you want to use Pali. So the Buddha also emphasized on gratitude towards teachers, towards parents, and whoever has helped us in the past. So it's interesting, by reminding ourselves on the good things that we have, that puts our lack of the things that we don't have into balance. Remember, last time I said there's often a gap between what we have and what we want to have. And this gap, we feel that gap as a form of suffering or dissatisfaction. And normally we try to close this gap by increasing what we have. But the desires raise also. It increases and desires, and it just goes up and up. But the gap never closes. But the way to close the gap, I think the only way, is reducing our desires and appreciate those things that we have already. And that's actually also the much easier way than chasing constantly after other things that just make more desires to follow. So I would like you now also to join me in a few minutes of gratitude meditation. You can close your eyes and get into your meditation posture. Sitting upright and relaxed. You're breathing naturally. There's nothing to do. We are human beings, not human doings. We can stop doing now. And we can remind ourselves on the good fortunes that we have in our own lives. parents and family. Some degree of health. Maybe not perfect health. Almost nobody is perfectly healthy if you're more than 20 years old. But still, a good degree of health. Access to medicine, whatever we need, whenever we need. Access to the Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings. Again, whatever we need and whenever we need it, through the help of technology. We live in a period where there is no war, and there hasn't been war for a long time. This is very unusual in human history. We have gratitude towards the Buddha himself for sharing these invaluable teachings with us. Again, allow yourself to maybe to smile a little bit while we are meditating, which can help and make it easier for pleasant feelings and joy to arise. We can be grateful for science and medicine, where even though we're living in a pandemic, it is a very comparatively small amount of people who are dying. Still large enough, of course, but compared to earlier pandemics, it could come much worse. But because of science and medicine, we can deal with it very well. please continue on your own with some further instances or people towards you feel a sense of gratitude. And last but not least, we can also have a sense of gratitude for the organizers of this retreat, who made it possible for us to meet here today and this weekend and practice the Dhamma together in this very fun and interactive way. And again, we're coming to an end of this short reflection, meditation, and again we look inside. How does the mind feel after 10 minutes of gratitude practice? Has anything changed? Maybe there's a sense of contentment or joy, appreciation. Maybe surprise. Whatever it is, just notice that. And we can ask ourselves, is this feeling, is this mental state, is this worthwhile cultivating? Does it feel good? If yes, well, then it probably is worthwhile cultivating and making much of. And then when you feel ready, you can open your eyes again. We come to an end of this short meditation.